Running Sentences presents The Lost Writer and His Tale. Part 1. The Issues of Writing. Struggling to write a new story, Victor goes in search of inspiration. Not that it will help, he worries, but it's better than writing. This story was written and narrated by Michael Honore. It is a work of fiction, so any names, characters, businesses, events, and situations within this story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, situations, characters, businesses, events, and/or fictional businesses, characters, events, and so on is purely coincidental. Copyright 2025, Michael Honore. All rights reserved. The computer screen had a blank page on it, the most feared thing for any writer. Victor didn't mind it as much. He still threw up a bunch of random letters and words to help fill the space. His problem was that it still didn't make him want to write anything. The latest idea of a man and a woman switching genders because of a weird old curse in a castle sounded good, but there was nothing there at the moment in his head. This was his little writing room, a space he kept simple and tidy, with only a room for his desk, a computer, and the window looking out to the apartment, all because this was the only space available to use in this manner. All I want is to write a story, and all I get is nothing. Speaking to himself was nice and forgiving, since the only response would come from his own mind. That mind tended to be on the open side for the most part, some of the time. And then there was the times when it didn't respond with any ideas, concepts, or anything at all. Shoot, I need a break, or at least something else to look at for a while. But I have nowhere to go or the money to do anything. Still, he wound up getting up from his chair and shutting off his computer. Maybe going out to stare at a TV screen in the living room would be better. The walk out to said living room space of his apartment was short, since there was only a few feet difference. Here, though, old posters of movies were plastered on the walls, many of them more on the erotic side. Look who emerges from their cave. With a look at the man on the couch, watching some sort of sport on TV, Victor rubbed his temples. The last thing he wanted was really to talk to his roommates, who were always loud and always had something to say. I've only been in there for 30 minutes, Brody. Yeah, but usually you don't emerge for a long time. It's a good thing to get to see you. Instead of trying to figure out what Brody was saying, Victor let his vision switch over to the sport on the TV. It looked like a fancy version of tag, which didn't seem right since it was on a sports network. Are they... Yep, it's the summer, so not much going on, and the network needs to fill time. There's apparently only so much off-season talk that they can fill the air. So I found this sport among other things like floor hockey, Brody said with a grin. Huh, interesting, I think. Right? Like, how do they find these types of sports and decide to air them? It's weird, Victor. Weirdest yet coolest thing to see. Victor nods along, unsure of what to say, his mind taking in the idea and trying to turn it into something more, but it was just sort of faltering. What's going on here? Our roommate is out of his hovel of a cave, Sam. Great. You owe rent, by the way, Victor. Whatever the idea that was in Victor's mind, it fizzled out at the comment of money owed. I thought I paid that, Sam? Last month, yes. This month, nope. Always so serious about the rent, Sam, Brody added. You two aren't, so I have to pay, so we don't lose this place after we lost our last roommate. It's a nice fucking spot, and actually relatively inexpensive, though if the landlord gets any ideas about upping the rent, then Mark goes out the window. Right. I'll get you your money by tomorrow, okay, Sam? Not really, but it will do. Can I ask if you actually have the money to pay? Yes, Sam, I have money tucked away to pay rent, just like I did the previous amount of times you've asked. I'm only asking, Vic, and just checking in, since I never see you work. Victor rolled his eyes and turned away from his roommate, Brody and Sam. Both good people, but some of the time. And most of the time they could be rather annoying. Right now, he needed air and to get away from them, for a little while at least. So he headed for the door. Are you going out? Yes, Brody, why? If you have some time, come back with snacks. The local place promised a hookup. That was your friend, who I'm not sure works there anymore, and as far as I'm aware doesn't even know me. Getting free snacks probably isn't possible. Brody shrugged though and turned back to his show. The sunny day greeted him as he stepped out onto the sidewalk of the apartment complex, which was nice, and not so nice. Noise instantly greeted him as busy people went here and there, along with the usual traffic of honking horns and tires squealing. He began to walk, trying to ignore all of this to get somewhere safe. Somewhere he might be able to think. The location he found himself at, a local coffee shop, wasn't going to provide him with much needed quiet. It would, though, he figured, give him a place to sit and feel alone. Maybe allow him to observe people without actually doing that, since he didn't want to be accused of being a creep. Worse, it was crowded, so he's still going to have to share the space with other people, most of whom were going to ignore him, but there's still the off chance of conversations. His luck had already run out, as a former friend's girlfriend, his former roommate, spotted him and had come over to him as he sat down on a nearby bench couch seat that had a table in front of it, one of the few open spots. Well, look who it is! Hello, Ellis. Yes, it is me. That doesn't sound like the friendly guy I used to know. We all change as time beats us down, along with the endless hours of work going nowhere but into the corporate pockets. She smiles, grabs the chair across from him, and sat down on it. This as a waiter came by and took their drink orders, so there was no escaping her now. Can I ask you something? He merely waves his hand to say it was okay. Your friends, the ones who knew Cadence before we broke up and that caused a shit ton of problems for everyone, are they okay with me? I don't know what you mean with okay with you. Well, maybe. They're my roommates still, though. That doesn't account for much, though, so I don't really know them all that well. Why? I was just thinking I want to restart my friendship with him. Victor felt himself blink a bunch of times, unsure if he had heard correctly or not. It was probably no big deal, but why come to him in order to do this? She could just go to the apartment and knock on the door. He felt like he was missing something in all of this. You could just go talk to them. That is always a danger when you don't know how people will act. I want to make sure I'm liked, because it isn't nice to be unliked, and you were friendly before, and do you know what that kind of thing does to a girl? Find somebody who doesn't like you? He stares at her blankly for a second, not quite sure if he wanted to understand or not, or say anything that might compare his own life to hers. I could not begin to offer a complete enough answer to that. You could try. Ellis's response was not helpful. And I would fail leaving you unsatisfied with what I've said. By all means, go talk to them. I'm sure they'll be happy and open to a friendship ever since Cadence just up and left our lives and the apartment and us to deal with his problems. So he left you like he left me. Victor pauses, since he's unsure of how to answer that with no idea how he left her. This, his brain thought, would make for a great drama in a book, but not so great for his personal life. Not that he had a great one of his own. He up and left, paying for his month's rent, and we never heard from him again. No idea where he is or what he's up to. He's not a part of our lives anymore. That's great. She bounces up and down on her chairs in a surprising amount as he tries to keep his eyes on her face, with a fair amount of success at that goal, and also trying to keep up with the conversation, having no idea where it was headed now. Well, if that's all you wanted from me... Oh, no, we have to catch up on life. We're not going anywhere. You ordered a drink. We can't leave without drinking a drink. Trapped with little hope of escape, he shrugs and begins learning all about what Alice had been up to. Her life was a whirlwind of work and having bad relationships that ended poorly. Well, I'm still a writer, by the way. Not that you asked, but it is what I'm up to. Oh, that's right, I've forgotten about that since Cadence only mentioned things in passing and never stuck to one topic for very long. What stuff do you do? A whole range of writing since it barely pays the bills. Whatever is needed, it gets done. She nodded along, asking a few more questions and keeping the conversation going until their drinks were finished. Well, this has been lovely, and I guess I will see you and your roommates around soon. I will be keeping in touch, of course. Dropping some money on the table, Ellis simply laughed, and it was enough to cover both of their drinks, which he was grateful for. It left him, though, with a confused mind and an idea for a character to be in a story, but still no story to write. Despite his efforts and intentions to find a place to think and wander about, Victor found himself on North Street. The only reason to ever be here was this was the road leading to his work. And he found himself in front of the bar where he generally took whatever work he could get. It was quiet for the late afternoon, and his boss, Stephen, was out front, smoking a cigarette. You need work. Always, Stephen, since nothing seems to go my way. You work hard enough and maybe it will one day. I'll keep working, Stephen, for that day and expect that it will never come. Do you have some stuff that needs doing here? Stephen gives a sharp nod of his head yes. We need to move some kegs and bottles from the cooler basement up to the bar for tonight. Big event going on. And you didn't think to call me and ask me to come help? I wasn't sure you'd be interested, and anyway, you randomly show up at my door anyway. You're a shit boss. Don't I know it, but I'm the only one willing to employ you right now, so... Victor begins to head for the door to go in, pausing for a moment. How much is this going to pay, and are you expecting any other work after it's gotten done? I'll give you what you expect to be paid. After that, we'll see, but extra work might happen. Not front of the house, though. No, maybe. Heavens, no, I don't know. You don't have the face or the manners for it, that's for sure. Maybe one day when you learn to speak to people and not just listen to them. God, I hope I'm no longer working here when that day comes. Moving kegs and other odds and ends from the cold storage in the cellar to the elevator was no easy task. Victor never proclaimed himself to be muscular or really strong person, and by the evening of pushing cases and kegs around, he was rather exhausted. Whereas one of the bartenders, a young woman, had come down and watched him while smoking a cigarette without offering to help one bit. You know, Stephen is a pretty terrible boss. Well aware, Lucy, well aware. He could have had you here sooner and fixing things as well. I can't fix things. You fixed the computer once. That power unit had accidentally got switched off. I merely turned it back on. It wasn't hard, and I only knew that because of times of trying to build my own computer. You did a job where you built computers? What was that like? Any better than working at this bar? He shook his head. No. It lasted a month. You were putting together parts and plugging things into the right slots. It was pretty boring, pretty quickly. Oh, so like any kind of job that anyone can do, as long as they know what they're doing? Pretty much, Lucy. It won't be a good enough paying job to get you out of here, though it might pay a little bit better. She went back to smoking as he pushes the last of the kegs into the elevator with a deep sigh. The job was done as far as he can tell. 20 kegs and more than a few carts filled with bottles were ready in the back room. All any bartender would need to do is pull them out and plop them in place in the bar. This is a rather big order for a party. Yeah, some big political shot wants to celebrate something, or maybe they were just someone rich, I don't know, she said. At this bar, this seedy place that draws only the most average of customers, Lucy? I guess whoever it is, Victor, wants to be seen as down to earth. Great, well, hopefully I won't be needed, even though I need the money. Why don't you want to do front of house work? Probably because, from the sound of things, it's going to be fancy dress with nice uniforms. I always, somehow, make those sort of uniforms look bad. As if people really kind of notice that thing. They do, Lucy, they do. Well, then it's more to write about in your stories. You are still writing those things, right? You don't talk about them as much as you used to, or at least not as much. Yes, I still do it. It's just none of them have been going anywhere lately, and I'm out of ideas. How does that work? The out of ideas part? He offers a shrug. You think of an idea that might make for an interesting story, and then you go to write, you get nothing. It's a terrible sounding job. Yes, it is. Can't get paid if I don't write, and when I do, unless it gets picked up by someone, I ain't getting paid. Worse and worse. Why did you pick that sort of line of jobs? It's what I love to do. I can't stop my imagination, which demands I create things. I believe it's like that for most creative people. His second shrug in a few seconds is met with a doubtful look from Lucy. She jumped off of her spot, having finished her cigarette, and stubbed it out on the ground. To change the subject, I have bad news for you. You're firing me, or what is going on? Our boss assigned me to tell you that we need you for this night. Get ready, you'll be all over the place, and in the front of house. Oh, shit. Yep, uniform is in the back office. Time to get ready. Dressed in a fancy white shirt, bow tie, and black slacks, Victor patrolled the barroom. He was looking for any empty glasses that had been abandoned by guests while trying to keep his head down. So far he had managed to avoid having to actually talk to anyone, and a few spilled drinks that went his direction had also been avoided. The last lap around had turned up no glasses, and he found himself trapped nearby a group loudly discussing local politics. There was a woman, as he tried to maneuver past, who kept stepping in his way, as he saw a glass not far off that he could get to. Excuse me. Why? I'm working and I need to keep cleaning and keep this place clean. You look rather dressed up for cleaning. Well, yes, I am, but a uniform is a uniform, miss, and I have no choice in that matter. Her hand went out, touching his face, which made him freeze up. At that exact second, his brain was trying to figure out what to do here and why she was doing this. He couldn't exactly say anything without losing his job, and well, the hand slipped all the way down to his crotch and squeezed. You could be doing better things. I'm here to work, not play. I need money. I can pay if you're interested. He took a step back, trying to get away from her grip, which tightened on him. Where do you think you're going without answering me? I have to request that you let me go. Why would I do that? There is an angry-looking man approaching us. I think sees what you're doing. I'd rather not be on the end of a punch because he decided I was acting wrong. I don't know about them, and I don't care about them. Yes, but I do know them, and I don't want to get punched or thrown out for doing my job. She let go of him with a disgusted look. Fine, whatever, loser. You'll never know what you've missed out on. He merely nods with relief and took off, headed for the empty glass on the table he'd spotted. The big muscular man now stood by it and glowered at him. She do anything to you? Nothing that you wouldn't expect from someone who has problems. A crotch grab and an offer for sex. Nothing you can prove, though. And, Bruce, you would have to take her word at what she says, since Stephen ain't taking the side of the workers. Bouncer Bruce nodded along and then slid easily away. The remainder of this horrible shift went by with little else going on. When it all came to an end during the late night, Victor found himself put outside in the back, where all of the shipping came in. Stephen said he'd pay him tonight, but he had to wait out there for it. It was quiet, which was nice, and a few cars had slipped back here to whisk away those that didn't want to be seen leaving out the front. He was joined by a man in a fine suit, smoking a cigar, who so far had ignored him. Oh, what a great night that was! Unsure if he was being spoken to or not, Victor kept to himself and continued to wait in silence. You're one of the workers, right? The man asked. Yes, I help keep the place clean tonight. You're the one who drew my daughter's attention. I noticed that. A quick search of his memory landed only on one such possibility, and it wasn't one he wanted to think about much. If you say so, sir, I'm sure she's already lost interest in me. Makes sense. She's always quick to move on to new things. Alright, no need to waste your time talking to me, then. The politician slowly turned to look at him with raised eyebrows. Victor met his gaze, offering a sheepish grin and a shrug, as if that was all the answer that was needed. The unhappy frown on the man's face, possibly the politician's face, said otherwise, but Victor still hoped. Why would I not talk to you? Well, me? I'm just a lowly person who rarely votes. You don't need that in your life. Well, I don't care about the voting part. My concern is with my daughter. Victor does his best to keep up with where this fishtail of a conversation was headed. First one way, then another, then back to the first way. This man really did not want to keep things simple. I'm sure she'll want nothing to do with me. And why is that? She made it apparent that a penniless worker just wasn't in her interest, and who would want anything to do with a person struggling to make ends meet? Do not underestimate her. When she gets an idea... The sound of a car engine filled the alleyway, and with a shake of his head, this politician turned to that. His car came to a stop not far away, and he took a few steps towards it when the door opened on its own. Just inside, Victor could make out the shape of a lady from before, and she was glaring daggers towards him. The limo, though, was soon closed off as the man entered it and left the area. Fucking phew. Yeah, Victor, yeah. Turning on his heel, Victor spotted his boss coming out the back, which made him look like he'd been standing there for a few minutes. Were you... Uh-huh. No way I was getting involved in that mess. Thanks. You could have saved me, Victor said. Instead of answering, though, Stephen offered a white envelope towards him. Careful not to look too eager, Victor took it but didn't open it right away, since he wasn't sure how much he was supposed to be paid, but the envelope felt hefty and that might be enough for now. The late morning sun came in through the window, smacking Victor right in his face. He wasn't ready to get up, but there was nowhere to go on his bed aside from down onto the ground, and the window shone light that was right there as well, a thing he discovered once or twice trying to escape back to sleep while falling onto the ground. With a sigh, he sat up and looked out the damn thing, seeing the glare of light and little else out there. Fucking hell, no rest for the wicked. Taking a moment more, he fully woke up and looked at the fat envelope on his little nightstand and reached for it. He was hoping that all of the money was real and that he hadn't been duped by the boss with fake money, paper, instead of actual dollar bills. Popping open the envelope was easy enough, and he soon counted out a fair amount of cash with only a few fake-looking paper-printed dollars that were just paper, really. He'd have to check them out at the bank or through his friends. How much do I owe again to the apartment? $400 in rent? He looked at the envelope, seeing that it barely had enough to cover that. Padding into his kitchen, Vector found Sam eating a bowl of cereal and spacing out, staring at a wall. For a moment he faltered, wondering if giving the man the money was a good idea. There was fake bills still in it. If his roommate was high, it might easily get lost. But it was owed, and with a sigh, he tapped the man's shoulder, hoping he hadn't smoked himself into stupor, and shook the man out of his stupor with a fair amount of surprise. Sam shot forward, looking about. What's going on? I was going to give you the money I owe you from pay the rent. Oh, great. Sam's hand reached out for it, but Victor pulled it back. My job at the bar is a seedy one, so I don't know if I can trust all of these bills. You got paid in cash? He pays for anything in cash lately. My boss? Do you want this if it isn't completely trustworthy? Victor said to Sam. The envelope was now held out for Sam, who was tentative to take it up. Where did you get it and for what? I worked down at Steve's bar. There was an event there hosted by some people throwing around money. Oh, that sounds mostly legit. Why pay you in cash? I think it's easier to keep things off the record in case fake money comes through. Anyway, are you taking it or not? Well, I guess it's fine since I work at the bank and moving these bills about should be easy, and if they're fake, well, maybe my bosses will look forward to hearing about it. The thought made Victor shake his head. If it's true, he would have gone to Sam to see if the money was good in the first place, but this talk, he didn't want to hear about it. I guess since it's okay with you, I'll rest easier on that. You know, I think I saw a movie about something like this. Money moving, Sam said, appearing to only half listen to what Victor was saying. Money laundering? Yeah, pretty sure. Pretty good story, though I can't remember the details. I wouldn't mind reading stories about that. Maybe you should write that. You're telling me I should write stories like that? Sam looked surprised by that, but simply got up and left the room. Disturbed by this sudden disappearance, and mostly confused, Victor stood there for a few seconds, frowned, then threw out a sigh for good effort. Well, it's not a bad idea. Might be a good idea. I was curious, that's all. Maybe you should have told me more. Calling after Sam didn't cause the man to turn around to come talk. No, he disappeared off towards his room. Great. No good ideas for stories, and all I have to do are a few threads of ideas. Concepts only get you so far when you started. There were some noises from the living room, which brought him that way. He found exactly what he expected to find. His roommate sitting on the couch, enjoying his sports. A new, different one this time, but still cheering someone on nonetheless. Brody, don't you watch enough sports? Never enough, man, never enough. What are you even watching this time? No idea. It has two teams, and they throw things at one another. It's kind of like a fancy version of dodgeball. Is it any good? No, yes, no, not really. It's entertaining. Does entertaining equal good? His roommate waved a dismissive hand towards him, not turning from the action on the TV. I suppose that some might argue that, but I feel differently. It's fun to watch, but none of it feels well done. You know what I'm saying? It was a remarkably deep thought from his roommate that he sort of did get. It was hard to be sure that they were on the same page, since his roommate had a lot of weird thoughts that walked the line between sense and nonsense. Good enough to watch, but not keep track of. Well, yeah, if you want to simplify it to a small degree. Okay, sorry, did I offend you with my comment? I was only seeking clarification by just putting that out there. Victor tried to explain to Brody. Go write your stories, I don't want to talk. Feeling incredibly rebuffed for merely asking questions, Victor backed up more than a few paces. Sorry for trying to be a good roommate. A good roommate would have gotten those snacks. Feeling rather disgusted by this whole thing, Victor went to the front door to get out of here. Making his way down the stairs, it took a few turns for Victor to arrive at the common room of the apartment complex. A nice space with a few tables set up in a bar-like space that was never a bar, and at least it never had drinks behind it. There were some pool tables as well, and then a few books stacked on some bookshelves, plus a few odds and ends of board games on those shelves as well, off in the corner, some of them untouched. Victor had always wanted someone to play games with, since it always felt like it would be fun, but alas, no one was ever interested in doing so. There were a few people around here, none of them who he recognized, as he went over to the bar to sit just to crowd watch. Mostly, he wanted to get lost in his thoughts again. Excuse me, is it okay if I sit in this seat? The two ladies not far away, and he didn't want to upset anyone. The look they gave him, though, made him feel it wasn't okay, and disgusted at why he talking to me, and gave him more than enough to simply walk away. He found a different nearby chair, and then looked at the doorway, since that felt somewhat safe. What am I supposed to do? No stories and no inspiration lately. There was a soft cough that came from his right, and he stiffened, fearing it was going to be those ladies. A glance that way showed a different person. Actually, there were two of them. One was a man and the other a young woman. Sorry, am I bothering you? Victor found himself saying before they could talk. No, we wanted to ask something of you. Yes, my girlfriend here wants to work at a bar, and saw last night that you were working at one. That sounded suspicious to Victor. Why would they approach him, of all people? He didn't even have that much of a connection with Stephen's place, and only worked there when called. Wouldn't it be smarter to go talk to the owner? Or any of the bartenders? Okay, why me? It looked like a fun job, she said. If that's the case, you should go talk to the owner, Stephen, whatever he's calling himself these days. We tried with several of the other staff as well. The place doesn't let anyone new in. Still very strange indeed, since it had only been not that long ago that he'd simply walked in and gotten a job. Granted, it was an under-the-table job, and Victor, he made sure to report everything to the tax revenue services so that he didn't get any shit. You tried Lucy? She's the right-hand man of the boss. Yes, we did. Can you help us? This lady asked. Victor offered a shrug, as all he could think was that this sounded like the beginning of a very strange detective novel, one that ended badly for all parties. End of Part 1 of The Lost Writer and His Tale. Thank you for listening.